Hi guys, hi, and welcome to this very interesting and heartwarming episode of the Scholar's Diary. My name is Anu.
And she's always extra. My name is Mayowa, and I'm just on point.
Whatever. On today's episode, we're going to be sharing with you all our personal stories of how we got the Chevening Scholarship last year.
Yeah, I'm going to search deep into my heart to try and bring out all that I can remember that was involved in the whole process. And I hope that somehow something that we say, one line or two,
maybe inspire you
or helps you some way.
Yeah. Alright, stay tuned. So, as you all know, my name is Anu, and I'm a women and girls' rights advocate, and that is exactly what I was doing before Chevening. So, I've got an initiative called Girl Unlimited, and with it, I work on different projects that have to do with the advancement of women and girls' rights. So, I had worked with them. I'd worked independently, and I had worked based on some sponsorship from the US consulate in Lagos, Nigeria. I had worked with UNICEF, I had worked with UN Women as well. So I had, quite an understanding of where I was before Chevening. But what I wanted to do at the point where I got to know about Chevening was to merge my passion, which is women and girls' rights advancement, with media, to sort of like bring those together and make a career out of it. So that's what I was doing before Chevening. Oh, and I already had some experience working in media. I'd worked as a freelance journalist as well. So yeah.
So before Chevening, I worked as a journalist in Nigeria, and I was also studying for a postgraduate diploma in print journalism, and it was basically having to tell stories of underreported and underserved communities, telling stories about business, about budgeting, about... I was basically focused on business and development as a journalist, and yes, this was basically the core of what I was doing before Chevening came along.
I was in Port Harcourt, Nigeria with one of my friends, Cynthia, working on a project that was targeted at helping young people from some underserved communities. When she told me about it, we were basically just gisting, on her bed, and then she goes, if you're ready for your master's, I think you should try this Chevening application. It just opened. That was sometime in late August 2016, and I was like, I don't believe in scholarships. Like, I feel like it's a scam. Why should I apply for a scholarship? But she kept insisting, and she sent me the link, and thereafter, like 6 other of my friends and family members also forwarded the opportunity to me, and then I thought, maybe I should just, try it out. So it was basically by word of mouth that I got to hear about Chevening.
If my memory serves me right, I heard about Chevening from a friend of mine, Bisola Oteshile, who got the scholarship in 2015, 2016, I think. And she invited me to the farewell event. So at farewell event, I also doubled as a reporter to report basically the event. The way it is in the head of a journalist, something sparks and you just want to write about it. So yeah, that was how I got to know about Chevening. But also my boss at work is a Chevening alumni, and basically those were the 2 Chevening people or Chevening related people I had contact with at the time.
So as soon as I started filling the application, of course a lot of people had told me about it, and those same people sort of formed my support group and even like introduced me to a Chevening scholar as at that time. Her name is Agatha Aduro. Agatha is a Nigerian. She's now a Chevening alumni, and I basically wrote out my essays, and I needed people to proofread it for me. So I had friends, my best friend, my family members, my cousins, my aunts, basically everyone around me, pitched in to help me at different points, just to say, oh, why not put this and, take that out, or why not talk more about your strengths than, this. And yeah, it was a collaborative effort, and some other people I met because I googled, Chevening scholars, and I probably found their social media, pages, and yeah, it was a collaborative effort of so many people.
My application is actually very strange and peculiar, and okay, I was speaking about Bisola earlier. Bisola is a very brilliant, smart, go-getting young woman. She had a first class in mechanical engineering from the University of Ibadan. We were in school at about the same time, actually. And on the other hand, I had a second class lower division, what you'd normally call 2-2, from the University of Ibadan. And many of the scholarships, the baseline is you must have a 2-1 and this and that. So when I was going to apply for Chevening, I thought if I told anyone I was applying, anybody who knew me well enough to know that I had a 2-2, they would probably think I'm crazy. They would think I don't know what I'm doing. I basically did not tell anyone I was applying. And so that basically meant almost nobody helped me with my application. Yeah, the initial part of it, nobody. I wrote it all by myself. Yeah.
I basically researched what universities, were really fantastic in media, because it was important for me to attend a university where I would get the practical aspect of media, imparted on me. I wanted to go to a university where I would carry a camera, shoot stuff, like film stuff, edit. I wanted to really go into the nitty-gritty of media production because I have been in media and I know what happens like on the front end. I wanted to learn the back end. And so I began to research, what UK universities were good, in that aspect, and that guided me, as well as the QS rankings as well. Now, there's a difference between choosing QS rankings for a university and QS ranking for the course. The course was more important to me than the QS ranking of the university. For me, for some people, it might be the QS ranking of the university first and then the course. But for me, I was more concerned about the QS ranking of the course and whether or not I was going to get hands-on, practical experience. And that was what guided me in making my choice. Also, the location of the school mattered to me. I didn't want to go to a school up in Scotland because just as a matter of choice, I wanted somewhere not too far off, somewhere a bit more central with a bit of character, somewhere that had promising, experiences for me as a student, somewhere where I know that students, it's not too expensive for students to live in, There were just a lot of things that came into that, and yeah, that's how I made my choices. And for my 3 choices, I actually chose the City University of London because it's the best university in journalism in London. I chose the University of Sussex School of Media, Film and Music because as at the time I was applying, it was one of the top 5 schools of media in the UK. And then I chose the University of Salford in Manchester because the university is in Media City. I mean, what else says that it's good? But eventually I chose the University of Sussex.
So before I applied for Chevening at all, I knew I wanted to take a master's, and for my master's I wanted just one thing, how does the media, how does journalism, the media as a whole, how does it drive development in any country, especially in Nigeria? So I looked through universities in Nigeria looking for any course that had to teach me about how media drives development, and I really didn't find a lot that was satisfying. The closest I found was Pan Atlantic University in Lagos. However, when I made up my mind to apply for Chevening, I just went online and did MA Media and Development. So I had Media for Development and Social Change from University of Sussex. I had Media in International Development, I think that University of East Anglia. Then Media in Development, I think that was SWAS University of London. Then, of course, Media, Communications and Development from London School of Economics and Political Science. So those were the four that I was going out for. But eventually, I dropped the London school because I didn't want to stay in London. I'm a small city person, so I preferred somewhere that wasn't all. Of course, everybody have their reasons for choosing where they want, but yes. And of course, it was easier for me to make that decision because Sussex was and is the best in the world for development studies. And since that was what I wanted, yes, so it was the right place to be. And it was a good choice for me, and remarkably so, considering what I've learned within the past 1 year. More importantly, let me say at this point, was the fact that if you looked at the choices I made, you were sure about what I wanted. Oh, media and development. Oh, this guy wants to do something about how the media can drive development. You also want to make that statement with your with your selection. Yeah.
I basically went for people whom I know me well, people who I've worked with or studied under. I actually went for one of my former professors from my university who knew me very well, and because I graduated the top of my class in my undergraduate, and I wanted someone who could attest to my academic ability. So I went for him. I knew he was going to keep putting a good word for me. And then I also went for someone whom I'd worked with, during one of my internships at UNICEF, and she definitely did a good job in delivering, a good reference letter for me.
Like I said earlier, my experience has been a very peculiar one. Now, Chevening advises that you choose an academic referee and a professional referee. So someone who knows about you academically and someone who knows about you professionally in your career. Now, virtually all my lecturers in the University of Ibadan thought I was not serious because I was not always in class. I was always working on one thing or the other that was non-academic. So by this time I already knew I wanted to be in the media, so I was already working with newspapers in the country. So they probably wouldn't have put in a good word for me. Even though some of them knew that, oh, this guy is smart, he's just not focusing on these things. But it was going to be dangerous to approach any one of them to write me an academic referral letter. So I just told myself, okay, we are shutting down this academic thing. I'm going to get letters from 2 professional referees, and whatever they like, they do with it. So I approached my boss at work and someone I had worked with at the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism. And when the letters came in, I was proud of them. So there was no need for any academic letter also. So I decided and I went ahead with this. And yeah, I guess that gamble worked. So I would say that you might not want to take that gamble, but if you have to, just make sure it's worth it. Like when you see the letter, be able to say, wow, this is me. Yeah, someone speaking so much about me. Yeah, so that was how I made that decision.
Do not overestimate. Is it over? Yeah. Do not overestimate the fact that you might speak English, whether as a first language or a second language. Yes, it's a good basis, but when you're preparing for IELTS, you need to read like you would prepare for any other exam. I spent a lot of time reading up the IELTS textbook because I got the IELTS textbook. For some, they did not, and that's fine, whatever works for you. So I got the IELTS past questions. I went through some of them, and then I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching Ingvid materials to help with the preparation for my IELTS, and then I practiced a lot, and I listened to a lot of BBC. At that time when I was preparing, I watched a lot of BBC as well to familiarize myself with how they pronounce some things, even though I have been speaking English as a first language for the better part of my life, but I just really got myself into that to prepare for IELTS. So that's that.
About my English test. Now, I was also very busy doing the build up to the interview, so I didn't have enough time to study. But I must say that as a journalist, I had been writing and reporting for a number of years. So working with 10,000 hours rule, I perhaps thought I had a grasp of English language. So what I did basically, I went on YouTube and watched the same popular Ingvid. I think it was Emma from Ingvid. She's amazing. You guys should check her out. So I watched her videos, and it just helped me know what they wanted, like how the format. So one thing, if you don't know anything about this exam, you must know the format, how they want these things to be answered, how you are going to listen to the listening test just once, and if you miss it, that's it. So you have to understand the format. Then about the speaking, you have to understand that there is no right questions, I'll be right answers. You just have to speak and speak English convincingly. So yeah, once Emma did that for me, once Emma brought me to the realization of that, I had maybe like 1 or 2 nights to actually watch videos and prepare, and that was it for IELTS.
This is the time to do the roll call. One of my cousins, Okwe Ndukwe, spent a great deal mocking me up for my interview. Like, we sat down and she was interviewing me and firing me like someone who did not know me would. Then my friend Bisola, my best friend Bisola, also interviewed me over the phone. And then Agatha Aduro, a former Chevening scholar, Chevening alumni, also gave me some tips. Kemisha Kelly from Jamaica, also a Chevening alumni, gave me some tips. There was Tando. Tando is a Chevening alumni from South Africa. She also gave me some tips. And there was Olivia. I think she's a Chevening alumni from Colombia. Also gave me some tips. And basically, they were saying the same thing to me. Like, if I had gotten to the interview stage, it means I'm already awesome. They just wanted to put a face to that awesomeness. So I just needed to go into, the interview and be myself, my awesome self. And yeah, they were the ones that prepared me for my interview. If I forgot anybody's name, please do not take offense. But this is everything that is coming to my mind right now.
About my interview preparation, now I told you earlier that I didn't tell anybody about my application because I didn't want people saying what the hell is he thinking about, was he smoking and all that. But I think eventually I think some hours before I submitted, actually, I sent it to a friend who, because of time, couldn't get back to me on time, so I submitted whichever. So, but when I was preparing for the interview, I had 3 people that I told. I told Bisola Oteshile, who of course was the first person that I really had a deep interaction with about Chevening. I also told Samuel Osho, who also happens to be a friend of mine, who was studying in Canada at the time on a scholarship. So of course I understand that he has an understanding of the way these scholarships works. Then I also told my brother Tijani Olaiton, who had studied in the UK. He had done his masters in the UK. So these were 3 people that I thought had like an understanding of this thing. So they had a mock interview with me, and when they were done with me, God, I felt like, why did I apply for this thing in the first place? Like they brought me down, like just down, and then they told me, you should change this, you should think about this, you should think about that. And by the time I was having the second one, it was a lot better. I had a lot more confidence. Then in the process, I met with, I had a phone call with a very generous man, Olotu Oluwanishola. He was really helpful with drilling me and keeping me in focus of what it was all about. Then I spoke with one of my bosses, and he told me one thing. He told me that when you get in there, and of course this happens to a lot of I don't know, maybe religious people or maybe morally conscious people who you don't want to talk about yourself. You don't want to be seen as bragging, as boastful and all that. He said one thing. He said Chevening wants to see a rising profile. So show it to them. So show them that within 2 years you've had 2 promotions. Within this you've done this. So brag, please, if you must. So, of course, not to sound really braggadocious and all that, but please do brag about your achievements and how you've traveled along the line. So, show them the rising profile. If they don't see that. So, those were the people who helped me in my preparation. Amazing, amazing people.
I think, first of all, the single most significant factor for even coming across the opportunity, Chevening, even getting to know about it, was as a function of, it was the God factor really for me. It was the God factor. The fact that God made me be in the right place at the right time to hear about the opportunity in the first place, and every step of the way he saw me through. So for me, the fact that I was selected as a Chevening scholar and I've gone through this process, for me, it was God.
Clearly, without doubt, without question, the single most important factor for me is God. Yes, God. Does it mean that people who don't believe in God are not going to get Chevening? No. People who don't believe in God could get Chevening, have gotten Chevening, would get Chevening in the future. But for me, Tijani, Mayowa, Emmanuel, it was God. The whole take a leap of faith, apply for something you are seemingly not qualified for, write your essays this way without having a second eye, do this or do that. It was clearly God. And so I had like direction on every aspect of it, and yeah, I guess that worked. So yeah, it can work for you too.
So if I was to advise, anyone thinking about applying for Chevening, I think I'll just tell you to try. Just try. You never know. Yes, at the time when I applied for Chevening, my friend who told me about it was not selected for Chevening that year. But she tried again and she was selected. And we've heard about stories of people who tried 6, 13, maybe 20 times, and then they eventually got selected. But I must tell you that Chevening is just one egg in a basket. Also apply for other scholarships. Don't just rely on Chevening. You are free to apply if you really want to do your master's. Chevening is not the only option out there, even though it's the most prestigious scholarship in the world. But yeah, peace out.
At the end of the process, looking back, I remember what Steve Jobs says about the dots not connecting while going forward. But when you look backward, the dots connect. So for me, it was clear. So when I look back, I saw that, he studied food technology, he crossed to the media, he worked in journalism, and everything just lined up. Now, the point I'm making is this. Preparing for Chevening is actually not just Chevening. You started earlier, you just did not know. So you started with that, your job, how you did it, with that little effort here, with that excellence here. So just mash up everything. And once you do that, telling your own genuine story, I'm sure you scale through. yeah, thank you guys. See you. Somebody wants to come and intrude. Oh, yeah, should get.
All right. Shit. Okay, so till we come your way next time.
I'm sure that this is not going to look so good, but yeah, till we come your way next time. See,
It's not so bad.
not so bad.
Okay,
Okay,
we
guys.
hope you loved listening to our very different,
Yeah, very different stories.
but interesting stories about how we got Chevening. And it's just interesting that, we came from different
Angles
routes.
to the whole
Like
thing.
there's a proverb that says there are different.
Roads
There's an
to-
African proverb that says that there are different
More like
roads.
to the market.
Yeah, there are different roads that lead to the market.
Yeah.
So just own your journey and yeah.
Exactly. Follow your own road to the market.
Yeah. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.